Yo, welcome to another episode of the Ramble podcast. It's been a minute, but we are back. I'm your host, Corbin Ford. Follow me on Twitter at Corbin NBA. This is a Sports Ethos presentation, so check out Sports Ethos on Twitter at Sports Ethos, online, sportsethos.com. Joining me today, or tonight, as I'm recording when y'all listen to this today, it don't matter. The dude don't sleep. You find him talking NBA, WNBA. Probably covered your, little brother's basketball game across the street this morning. Name's Nick Andre. You can find him on Twitter at Nick Andre ATR. Literally, the dude does it all between Fansided, Believe in, or Believe the Believe Network. Literally everything. I don't understand why you don't sleep, but I take advantage of it because you're on the show here talking basketball with me per usual. Nick, how you doing, my man?
Corbin, man, it's a pleasure to be back on, man. Every time me and you do a show together, it's always a bomb. So, I'm ready to get excited into this one, man. NBA has been exciting, especially down the stretch of the season. We're about to go into the play-in tournament in about a few weeks, so it'd be really interesting to see, how things unfold from here, and then up to 3 weeks from now.
Yep, that's true. It's going to be a lot of fun coming on and seeing what that looks like, and how things take shape, especially as we get down to less than 15 games for each team. Less than 15 games for each team before we get into the postseason.
Facts. I'll be honest, man. This season is going by really fast. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, like, it feels like it was just yesterday when the Lakers and Nuggets were playing on opening night, and now you just mentioned we're about 15 games away from the postseason, which is just crazy. Like, this season is just blown by like crazy.
Yeah, man, it's really, really kind of wild. It's crazy to think that this is almost over. Like, before you know it, long off season, and we gotta go and slowly, look forward to the draft, and then look forward to free agency. And then look forward to preseason as we slowly lose our minds.
That's a fact.
For the basketball fans. Although, to be fair, that's not all the way true because we got to give respect to, first off, in the summer, you have the big three. So shout out to that. Also, WNBA hoops is going to be huge this season. So shout out to that as well. So, in general, like, hoop fiends will always have something there.
12 months a year.
That's true. Always have something there. When I say that, I mean specifically the NBA. But if you watch basketball, if you're a real hooper, you got all basketball all the time, right? So that's true. Like I said, give love to the big three. Give love to the WNBA for real. Let me not put any disrespect on their name whatsoever. Aside from that, listen, I'm ready to hear the Washington Post piece on Kim Mulkey.
Yeah, I've seen a lot about that. I've seen a lot about that. People have been talking about it all day. So I don't know when it's going to drop. I don't know if it's going to drop this weekend. I don't know if it's going to drop earlier in the week. But I'm sure everybody will be clicking that link as soon as it drops.
Yeah, I definitely I don't know. I'm looking forward to it for sure. But yeah. I don't understand like you said, there's been a lot of smoke around there, And for her to come out with a pre-planned statement addressing an article that hasn't even dropped that most of us weren't even aware of.
I wasn't aware of it literally until her press conference. It's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. So for you to immediately go and do that, like you drew attention to it in the worst way. I went from not really thinking about it to like, yeah, get me in there. Like, let me see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm really excited because once that article drops, everybody's gonna be clicking the link, but the timeline on Twitter is going to be flooded. Flooded.
It's about to be.
And then we're gonna see a whole bunch of spaces, discussing the article and stuff. It's gonna be like
Listen, I'm gonna hop on MNC Hoops.
Let's do it.
I'm gonna be up in there for real. Now, but I thought it dropped tomorrow, and then I heard it might drop Monday.
I don't know when it's going to drop. Either way, it's coming. It's coming soon.
You know what? It will. Before we even get into it, I'm sorry. I got to look it up. So Kim Mulkey, Washington Post. Let me just see if there's one.
I honestly don't know exactly like what the details will be. I don't know if it's going to be based off of like this season. I don't know if it's going to be based off of like, her past, like maybe whenever she was coaching Baylor or whatever. I don't know exactly what it's going to be about in particular, but
yeah. Here's the thing. They play tomorrow. My bet's they come out tomorrow.
Right.
It's the timing of it. Exactly. The timing of if you're a newspaper and you're trying to capitalize on it, you drop it the day an event happens, right? Like that's what I think, right? The report came out yesterday by Pat Ford on Twitter that there was some buzz about a big Washington Post story in the works. I just feel like it comes out tomorrow before they start their tournament because the newspaper don't give a crud about you about to be on a championship race.
Got to get those numbers.
Exactly. And then you go out, Kim, in what was definitely played yourself and put that out there. Now all the attention is going to be on it. So like, if I had to guess, because you're right, it wasn't made immediately clear what that story is about or when it might publish. And I'm not a betting man, and I'm shout out to all the betting going on in the NBA. It's kind of ridiculous, but if I were, I would say tomorrow.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. There's just a few things. So I just hope that if it does drop tomorrow, I just hope that it doesn't cause a distraction with the team, because obviously this team right now is in the middle of the tournament and they're trying to repeat as the reigning champions, and they have an abundance of great players over there. So I just hope that it doesn't cause a distraction within the locker room, within the team huddles or anything. And on top of that, I want to know like how word got out to Kim Mulkey about this article dropping. Like that's something that I'm really curious about, because most people, they don't preview articles. I mean, some people do, and some people it just comes out of nowhere, out of the blue, and then now it has people talking. So I wonder how word got out to Kim Mulkey that this article was actually written and prepared to drop.
I mean, Kim definitely seemed like she has connections, right? So I will say that seems to be a thing. And also maybe she saw it on Twitter, but you're right, to have a prepared statement whipped up that fast. I mean, yeah, like I said, she probably knows people, well connected to all of that, but that just seems crazy and wild to me, you know?
Yeah. And my thing is, for anybody who has to do a statement pre-article release, it's got to be extreme.
You look at Matt guilty.
Yeah, like I've never seen nothing like that. I've never seen anything like that.
Nah, it ain't even starting. We're already looking at you like, huh, interesting. Tell me more.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, you said it. But anyway, let's get to the meat of the actual show here, man. Appreciate just talking ball with you anyway. That is news. I know we're all staying tuned on that, but let's talk about what we're going to start with, which I'm starting a series here in between, getting the show back going on and some daily content here, which Nick might be a part of. Might be a night like, hey, Nick, what's going on? Let's talk about the games. But what I'm really doing right now is a positional series. And so Nick's going to help me kick that off. And we're just going to rank the top 10 in each position. We might go honorable mention at the end of the show of guys that didn't make the cut that we want to talk about. But basically, each position will go into our top 10. Me, whether it's Nick, a guest, myself, and just go into the list that we have of players that match, from the 10th best player in that position to the very best player, and have a discussion about it. So definitely looking forward to doing that, and having Nick on as the very first one just makes sense. We are doing for our first position small forwards. And small forwards, I mean, come on now. The creme de la creme of the NBA is really at that position. If we do a top 10 list of NBA players just in the league, I would say at least half, maybe just under half of them are probably small forwards. So it's definitely a talent laden crop of players at that position. But Nick, just before we get into our top 10, how did you define small forward? Because we are in the NBA that is increasingly positionless. You have teams like the Boston Celtics who start two small forwards, but one a small forward and one a power forward. You have certain guys who play the three that should be probably a four, guys who play the three that should be a two, guys who don't play the three that should probably play the three. So for you, what is a small forward, and how did you dictate that in your ranking system here?
To me, a small forward at this stage in basketball has to be a jack of all trades. And what I mean by that is, this is a guy obviously who's in the middle. He's at wing position, so bigger than a two guard, but then not as big as a power forward or a center. So they're like right in between. But in that position, you can do a dynamic of multiple things. I mean, throughout the history of small forwards, like we've had Larry Bird, we've had Scottie Pippen, who many times, like throughout that Bulls team, was a point forward who was the primary playmaker for that team. And then, that also translates to LeBron. And you look at LeBron, who's listed as a small forward, but he can literally play any position on the floor, whether it's a point guard, whether it's obviously a 3-man or even a small ball big. So, and then you got other guys who are just dynamic scorers like a Kevin Durant or a Carmelo Anthony or whoever it is, or even a Tracy McGrady. I know people may listen as a 2 or a 3 either there, but he's around 6'7", 6'8", so he's qualified height-wise at least to be a small forward. So that's just the way that I view the small forward, at least from what I've seen. I feel like we've seen so many different dynamic small forwards throughout like the NBA and its history. And it means, like you mentioned, I mean, now we're in an era where it's just positionless basketball. So I mean, pretty much anybody can play anywhere on the floor. I mean, hell, we look at how Nikola Jokic for Denver can just do just about everything for that team. So, but when I look at the history of just the small forward position, I just think that there's just so many different dynamics that takes place. So that's why I feel like it's one of the more I wouldn't say like one of the hardest positions to play, but definitely one of the more important, like one of the more important positions, just because of what they're able to do on just both sides of the floor and then like on every angle of the floor as well.
No, I agree. It's that they are definitely an integral part of a basketball team, of a successful basketball team. You don't see many successful teams without a really good small forward, right? And if they don't have
Mhm.
one, they have a hell of a guy at another position, whether it's point guard, whether it's center with Nikola Jokic, because let's be real, Michael Porter Jr., he's probably not in our top 10 small forward list. He's a very adequate small forward, but not in our top
Yeah,
10. But Nikola Jokic is so great, it kind of supersedes that, right? He makes it to the point that Michael Porter Jr. doesn't have to be great at his position. So, but that's a rarity, right? Like that's the exception to the rule. For the most part, you're right. Like it has to be a guy who can kind of do it all. And so with that being said, we'll kind of go back and forth on our 10 through 1, but let's start off, Nick. Who is your number 10 small forward?
for my number 10, I have Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yo,
This is my
same,
guy. Yeah, this is my
same.
guy right here. And the reason why I have him at number 10 is because for those who've been watching the Pelicans for a while now, injuries have been a big thing for Brandon Ingram. And I think availability has definitely been one of the things that's kind of held him back over the past few years. And I mean, it's something that's, not necessarily in his control. It's just, it's just unfortunate situations. But Brandon Ingram is pretty much like the way that I describe small forwards, somebody of that length, of that caliber, somebody who can run the floor, somebody who can get their own on offense. He's also taken at least some small leaps defensively from what I've seen in recent years. So Brandon Ingram has definitely taken his game up a level, in my opinion, at least every season he's played in New Orleans. I mean, hell, he was the most improved player back then, about 3, 4, 5 years ago with the team. And I feel like personally, man, like he's one of the more important factors on that team. I mean, I know the New Orleans has an abundance of great players. Obviously, Zion Williamson, who in my opinion is probably playing his best basketball that we've ever seen him play at. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have an abundance of other guys: CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado. Just a great overall supporting cast. But I feel like without the impact of Ingram, that team is not as good as what many people would probably project them to.
Yeah, I mean, even now, like they're in a stretch where, they're still a very good team, but let's be real, like this Pelicans team is missing Brandon Ingram for the next 2 weeks with that hyperextension in the knee, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
miss will be felt. It just
Exactly.
is what it is. So I definitely agree with you on that front. And I think that he's also grown his playmaking, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
on a team that have a traditional point guard, Brandon Ingram and of course Zion Williamson as well have taken on larger shares of that playmaking duty. And I think Brandon Ingram, not Brandon Miller, Brandon Ingram has done a really good job of growing in that role and facilitating and being not a heliocentric player, but someone that you could run the ball through for large stretches and expect both him to get his own shot and for him to get other people involved. So I definitely like Brandon Ingram there at number 10.
Right. And like I said earlier, I mean, I think that he could possibly be higher on that list, but we talk about the injuries and everything, and I think that's probably the one key factor that's kind of held him back. Because I mean, it's like we said, I mean, he's taken certain leaps in his game offensively, but it's all about availability. And as far as also New Orleans has, now they're a good team, and now they're playoff bound. And I know that they made the playoffs 2 years ago when they had that probably like a really great first round matchup against Phoenix a few years ago, but I just think that those are the two factors as far as the reason why he's still like at least like borderline top 10, just because of his injury history. And then of course the Pelicans not consistently being in contention like we expect them to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like at the end of the day, like availability is a factor here, and especially for me, like in your top 10 small forwards, like Kawhi will be there for sure. But you want to have, and Kawhi's been healthy this year, so it's not even like that's
Right.
applicable to him. But it is something I take into consideration when you do talk about players, because it's like, hey, at the end of the day, like, yes, you're one of the top players, but you can barely get on the floor. It doesn't really do a whole lot. Like I'm sure there was
Exactly.
times where, Gordon Hayward was a top 10 small forward, but Gordon Hayward probably never fell into the top 10 small forwards between 2016 or 2017 and 2021 because he was always injured. And if you're not available, then you're the best guy in street clothes. And that doesn't really help a team win. That does it, right? So
Exactly.
with you on that for sure. But let's move on to your number 9. In fact, we can go back and forth on a number like
Yeah, go
8, 9,
ahead.
all of that. Okay, so for my number 9, I have Jalen Williams from OKC.
Yo, honestly, we might be on the same page because he's my number 9 too.
Are you serious, dude?
Yes.
Great ballers think alike up in here. I love it because, and he's somebody I didn't expect. It wasn't until I really thought this bad boy through that I was like, whoa, you know what? Like, he's there. He's grown in leaps and bounds. He's been, I would say, after Shea, their most consistent scorer, but also a very tough defensive player. Someone who can do a little bit with the ball as well. Like, he's still growing in that for sure, but somebody who can, kind of play with the rock a little bit and be a little bit of a jack of all trades. And like the way you describe positionally, for a small forward to have that kind of skill set where they are a Swiss Army knife and can kind of do it all, like Jalen Williams can kind of do that. And he's definitely grown. I think his development as a scorer has been the biggest evolution in his game that I've liked, is really the consistency there. But all in all, like, he has been a really big catalyst in why OKC's been so successful. Like, yes, it is very easy to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and it's true. He's worth it. And yes, Chet Holmgren and all of that. I mean, even Josh Giddey got noise, not for the right reasons, but he got some noise. But like Jalen Williams, man, like, he has been solid. He's grown in leaps and bounds, and he is worth being number 9 on this list.
I agree 100%. I mean, his growth has been tremendous, and he's by far one of the more important factors on this team. And I get it. Excuse me. I definitely get it. I know that his name doesn't necessarily stand out compared to the likes of SGA, Josh Giddey, Chet Holmgren, and those other guys, but OKC is not one of the top teams in the Western Conference without Jalen Williams. And you talk about his league defensively. In my opinion, that's probably the best factor in this game. If you ask me, it's just his defense. Just using his athleticism, his quickness, attention to detail. There's just so many things that go into his game on the defensive end, and then of course on offense too. Being able to knock down shots, being able to drive the lane and attack, showing that athleticism on that end as well. So J-Dub has definitely, if you ask me, proven himself to be one of the top 10 small forwards in the league, just because of how well he's played, but also how he's been able to impact OKC as a whole too.
Yeah, the versatility steps up in a major way, right? And the fact that you said defensively what he's been able to do, offensively being another guy that can take some offensive pressure off of, a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and step up in that way. Yeah, like this is where he's at, and I think the biggest thing too, he has been healthy, right? And so he has been. That's why he has the edge for me over. That's why he has the edge for me over Ingram, is because he's been there.
Yeah,
like there's something there's something for being available, especially when you're a similar player. I'd still say he's better because he's better defensively than Ingram. So I'd still say that he'd be better than Ingram. But one thing that stands out in his favor for me is the fact that he has been healthy, right? Shooting 44% from 3 this season, 54% from the field over the year, 19, 4, and 4. Like, that is solid. 1.1 steals per game, just under a block per game. Like, the dude is impactful in so many different ways. And he improved his numbers. He shot 52% last season in 75 games, 52% from the field, 14 points per game. Now he's shooting 54% from the field at 19 points per game. Shot 35% from 3 with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Now he's shooting 44% from 3 with 4 rebounds and 4 assists. You know what I mean? Like, he's been really consistent. He's been very, very good. And so, yeah, well worth it for number 9. And being that he is as young as he is, like, he will move forward in that. Like, there is no doubt in my mind that he will continue to rise up the ranks. The guy is 22. He'll be 23 here in another month. But like, at the end of the day, the guy, and he's versatile, small forward, power forward, even shooting guard in some cases. Like, that lends itself to being, again, that multi-purpose player that a small forward needs to be.
The biggest number that you named was him being 22 years old. And I think people don't realize like how much he has progressed this early in his career, which is just really incredible. And he still has a lot of room to grow, because he's only going to get better as time goes on. And I think that's what people have to take into consideration too. And, like you said, I mean, he played well last year. And that's why even last year we're watching him and watching SGA, continue to take those leaps. I was looking at OKC last year, I was like, man, like, because people were saying like, hey, give it another few years. This team would definitely be playoff contenders and championship contenders in the next possible 3 to 4 years. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this team could be better next year. I was like, dating back to the 2022-23 season, and now looking now with the 2023-24 season, I'm like, this team can be good now. Like, as long as they stay healthy, as long as they continue to just progress. And obviously at that time, Chet Holmgren was not there because he missed the whole season last year. So now they have him back. And then you have the elevation of SGA, and then you have the elevation of Jalen Williams as well. So what J-Dub's been able to do early in his career is really incredible. And I think that's what people have to look at as well, is that, he's only a few years in. He's only 22 years old. For many other guys, they'd be seniors in college right now. So it's like, for him to be 3 years less than 25 years old, it's just really incredible. And it's like, he's only, like I said, he's only going to get better, as time moves forward.
No, absolutely. You're right. Like, there's a growth track here that you can like keep account of. And I think that's something to be said for that. And again, the attention to detail and the ability to keep growing in your only second year, being as mad efficient as you are, and an integral cog in this OKC team. So definitely with you on that. Nick, who's your number 8?
So I have Scotty Barnes of the Toronto Raptors. I'm a really big fan of this guy. Obviously, he's a Florida State guy. Shout out to the Noles. But as far as Scotty has taken his game to another level this year, and he's improved literally in every aspect of this game: the playmaking, the defense, the perimeter shooting, which obviously was a concern for him, coming into the NBA. But he's improved upon a lot of that, man. And give credit to the training staff. Give credit to a lot of the guys out there in Toronto who's been helping him progress in this game. Is the reason why he ended up being an All-Star. I know he wasn't in the original All-Star, and I want to say he replaced Embiid in the All-Star game. But just for him just to be able to have that slot was just amazing. And I know that Toronto, they're in a rebuilding mode right now. Obviously, with the big trades that went down, obviously traded Pascal to Indiana, then, getting guys like RJ Barrett, trading away OG Anunoby to New York. But now this is the big opportunity for Scotty Barnes to just continue to just continue to take those leaps. Now you're looked upon as the franchise player, and he has a pretty decent supporting cast around him now. Maybe not good enough now to really become a true legitimate playoff contender, but a good supporting cast that'll help him move in the right direction. So, like I said, Scotty Barnes is taking a big leap this year, and it should not be ignored at all.
No, I agree. It's funny that you have him here because I actually have him in the power forward.
Yeah, so that's my thing. Is it's just so weird now. It's I don't know where exactly I should position these guys, whether they're 2 guard, a small forward, power forward. And I get it, these guys can play so many different positions, but I don't know. It's just
No, it is. I think for me, one thing I will say I did for me, a small forward, I wanted to see, can you swing to, if you swing up, there's additional versatility there. But if you can swing down a position, that makes you more likely to be a small forward, in my opinion. Jalen Williams can swing down to shooting guard, right? He can swing up to power forward, right? LeBron James can swing down to point guard. He doesn't really play shooting guard, but give you your point guard and then go up to power forward, right? Scotty Barnes, for me, yeah, he can play the 3, but really I feel like he's more a 4 who gets up to a 5. Same with a guy like a Pascal Siakam. It's definitely unique, and I don't fault you at all for putting it the way you did. And I think that makes, again, part of this interesting is the fact that you have this versatility here, and he could play the 3, but I think he just played so much of the 4 this season, basically at the 4, that I'm you know what, I'm just going to put him there. But I like that you have him there for sure. I think that there is it's important to have just for some nuance, because if you look at his Basketball Reference, he apparently plays shooting guard, which I would definitely disagree with.
No,
but
I'm not.
Small forward and power forward. Exactly. And if you look at, when he first came, apparently, no, this season, Basketball Reference is kind of weird. They have him cited as a shooting guard. Last season, the small forward. His first season, the power forward. I don't know. I find that kind of funky. But at the end of the day, we could definitely say he swings between the 3 and the 4. And so you having a 3 is just fine. For me, number 8, I took Jaylen Brown.
I'm so upset I forgot about Jaylen Brown on my list. Probably because I've been viewing him as a 2 guard for so long.
Yeah, and that's always been he's a 3. He's only a 2 or a 4 because of Jason Tatum being there.
Exactly.
But I have Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's
while you talk, I'm gonna try to fit Jaylen Brown in this list somewhere.
Okay, there you go. Try to make it happen. There you go. We'll spend some time talking about him for a second here, though. But he's definitely grown in leaps and bounds. Had a really monster game against Detroit, which doesn't mean a whole lot because Detroit. But 33 points on 13-19 shooting for the season, 50% from the field, 35% from 3, 23.4 points per game. Which actually a little bit of a step down. Last season, averaged 26.6. But he's a guy who's really just come together and improved his offensive game in a major way. His left hand, still a weakness, but not demonstrably so, right? He's been a really just solid player for this Celtics team, especially when you've had guys and Jason Tatum's been great, but Jason Tatum can kind of run hot or cold. And so to have a guy, like Jaylen Brown here, who's 19th in scoring, 38th in field goal percentage, really solid guy over his last 10 games. He's averaging 29.8 points per game, along with 6 rebounds and 3 assists, shooting 51% from the field and 39% from 3. He's just been really, really solid this season. And definitely been firmly a star for them, and a big reason why Boston is the best team in the NBA.
100%.
Yep. So
100%. JB's one of my personal favorites to watch, man. I know that, especially last year, a lot of people, were really critical of him. Of course, his ball handling has always been a weakness. And, you mentioned, him not being able to finish as strong with his left hand, but overall, you can't ignore the impact that he's had. Tatum and Brown continue to just evolve as a duo out there in Boston. Which is part of the reason why they're in position right now as the best team in the league and could potentially win a championship by the end of the season.
yeah, absolutely. You said it. That's the truth. So let's go down to your number, or I guess it's me. My number 7 player is Jimmy Butler.
Same here.
Jimmy B. Okay, cool. Tell me why you have number 7. I can go quickly. I like him. I think he's definitely taking a step back this season. Some of it injuries, some of it, like even now, he's kind of ramping up for playoffs. Like, oh my goodness, here comes playoff Jimmy. I just don't see it. I think at some point, age regression has been a thing. I think you look at his free throw attempts and the way he's been playing in terms of aggression, and I think it's fair to imagine that there is a little bit of a age-related decline here. A very, very, very slight, but that has been there. And yes, he's still very, very good. And he's shooting really well from 3 this season, 41% from 3, which is really solid for him. But just 21.5 points per game, drop from last season, a drop in field goal percent from last season, a drop in rebounds, a drop in assists, a drop in steals. Like, he's taking a drop this season. It's been a step back. And I did this kind of grading on, like, if I would have a starting small forward this season. I'm not projecting for the future. I'm not looking at the past. I'm looking at right now for this year. And right now for this year, I don't know. Like, he's just not been great. His effective field goal percentage is 53%, which is better than it was in 2021-22, but worse than it was last season, right? And so at this point, yeah, I got to look and go, okay, what do we got here from Jimmy? And right now, I think you got a really solid player, Jimmy Butler, who can ramp it up a little bit, but it's definitely shown that, hey, there's a little bit of a step back in his normal production.
It's funny because, with you naming off Jimmy Butler's stat line, it's crazy because I think the one person that's probably going to care less is Jimmy Butler.
Absolutely. He wouldn't care at all.
Exactly. But Jimmy's still a really good player. I don't want to discredit him at all. I still think he's a really good player.
Absolutely. Number 7 is not bad.
Exactly. No, exactly. 100%. And it's like you mentioned, I think age definitely does play a factor in this. He's definitely not the same Jimmy that he may have been, back in his, back 4 or 5 years ago when he joined Miami, and even back in the Philly days, or even, back, like whenever he was playing for other teams. But he's still a really good player. And the thing about Jimmy is that Jimmy is always just going to like steadily pace himself throughout the regular season, because at the end of the day, he always understands that the postseason is all that matters. And that's why I feel like, to me, like, I feel like Miami, Miami's gotten some really good pieces over the past few years, especially acquiring a guy like Rozier out of Charlotte. You still got Bam Adebayo there, but I feel like there's just still not enough for Miami as far as them really helping win a championship, especially when you have Jimmy Butler, who just went ballistic last season in the playoffs. But as far as for this season, obviously injuries have played a role in his production in a way. But it's also just Jimmy being Jimmy. Jimmy's going to pace himself throughout 82 games. He's going to give you some moments where where he is showing that he's the best player on the floor, but then he may have a game where he's just more so focused on playmaking and setting up other guys and just doing other things that doesn't involve putting the ball in the basket. But besides that, Jimmy's still a really good player. Jimmy can still impact the game from multiple perspectives, and we all know that his time is always going to be in the middle of April, like from the middle of April to potentially June.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. And that's, he locks in when he needs to, right? And it's one of those things where I don't want to sell him short, even though I don't think he's been as impactful this season. And yeah, injuries have played a big part, but injuries is part of it, right? But at the end of the day, he's still one of the top 10 small forwards, and he brings that energy, when it needs to happen, and particularly when it counts. Speaking of energy, I want to take a brief second to shout out the sponsor of this show. Gotta love the seamless transition here. We got Magic Mind, y'all. As always, we've heard on the show, I've been taking Magic Mind more recently, just to kind of replace some of my caffeine intake from coffee, because coffee kind of gets me jittery, gets me going for sure. Can't lie and say it doesn't, but it kind of has some unintended side effects that I really don't appreciate. But Magic Mind has been a game changer for me. I've been, like I said, taking it here recently, at least for the last couple months, and it's been really impactful for the way that it gives me the energy I need to get pretty good mental performance in terms of being awake and active and aware for all the stuff that I do without, over caffeination, any anxiety, any jitters. Like, it does a really good job of taking care of you in that way with all the stuff you need and none of the stuff that you don't. So what makes them different, they have 100% safe ingredients. Everything's third-party tested and sourced from the best suppliers. They're not a coffee replacement, so if you still like your coffee fix, y'all go on and get it. Like, they don't replace it at all. They're just an addition to your morning routine, just like your daily essential vitamin, but it helps your mind, right? And they have compounds inside that also makes your coffee last all day. In addition to that, the caffeine. To go into the science of it, caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. It blocks some neuroreceptors in your brain that tell you that you're tired. When the receptors unblock 1 to 3 hours later, you experience a sudden drop in energy that you already had, you just didn't know. That's what they call the caffeine crash. Magic Mind does something totally different. Their formula uses 12 active ingredients to help support your body's energy engine. So now it's actually charging you up, not making you think that you're really not tired when you are. So there's a whole lot of good stuff in there for sure. Matcha, if you like your matcha green tea, they have that in there. Most of their ingredients are either organically grown or locally sourced. So you got to check that out. Their matcha is the highest possible grade, and they have all this ready for you. No risk. They have refunds 100%. No questions asked for 100 days after buying. I don't know where you're going to find that outside of this. Like, even my podcast. You don't like my podcast? Too bad. Like, here we are, right? But Magic Mind gives you all of that. So definitely make sure to check them out. They are shipped internationally to 65 countries. They're in Sprouts. They're in Central Market. They're on Amazon. You want to know where they are, you can find them. But if you want to get a discount while doing so, listen, you can get 40% off your first subscription or 20% off if you just want to try one time with the code DailyNBA20 at checkout. So again, if you want to get on a little subscription, you can get 48% off your first subscription or 20% off your one-time purchase. All right? With the code DailyNBA20 at checkout. So make sure to do that. DAILYNBA20 all together. Or go to www.magicmind.com/dailynba. Get your Magic Mind, get on board, get that energy off. All right. Going back
Get your
to
Magic Mind. Yes, sir. I like it.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you. Listen, like, Nick don't even need the stuff, man. The dude stay up all the time. But if you got on it, bro, I don't know. You'd be just an NBA.
I'll probably be going on 1,000, man. It's crazy.
Yes, sir. Be doing 2 other podcasts after this. And for the record, y'all, we recording this at 11 o'clock my time in Colorado. So I know it's later on Nick's time.
It's midnight. So, it's literally just hit midnight my time.
There you go.
Hey, it's Saturday night, so we're good, man.
Real ones who love ball say that. Because you could be at a club, you could be at a party, and we like, hey, it's Saturday night, let's talk some ball. So I appreciate you, man. But we will breeze through here a little bit more for you. But getting back, so we are now on number 6, or we on your number 7, actually?
I agree with you. I had Jimmy at number 7.
You had Jimmy number 7. Okay. Yeah. So who is your number 6? And you know what? Give me your 6 and your 5, and then once we get to 3, 2, 1, we'll kind of go back and forth. But we'll do 6 through 4 in a tier.
Okay, you want to do 6 through 4?
Yeah.
Okay,
kind of cut on the time, taking into account the time.
I got you. 6 and 5, I got 2 Clippers. I got Paul George at 6, and then I have Kawhi Leonard at 5. And then number 4, I have Mr. Paolo Banchero of the Orlando Magic. All 3 of those guys are really good. All 3 of those guys are really good. PG, just continues to just really impress me. I think, him thriving as a second option for the Clippers, being that second great scorer for the team right behind Kawhi Leonard. Still has that ability to, to just score from the outside, showing that versatility, in the mid-range, being able to knock down 3-point shots, still continuing to attack the basket, whenever he needs to. And then, of course, defensively still making an impact as well. So PG has been really good as a whole. A game that's standing out to me, just random thought is, I want to say it was like maybe mid-January, whenever they played OKC at home, and they just dominated them, and Paul George just pretty much closed that game out by himself for the most part. I can't remember exactly how much he scored in the fourth quarter, but I know he pretty much just took over that game, which is what led to the Clippers team, or to the Clippers win. But without PG's impact, the Clippers are not in a position, to where they are now as one of the top contenders in the Western Conference. And at number 5, Kawhi Leonard, we've already said it, man. A healthy Kawhi, that's pretty much all we really needed. I feel like we've been cheated to that, especially in recent years, especially, with this whole Clippers experience with him and Paul George. Injuries have definitely riddled this team, having the sprained ACL, then dealing with, just other injuries as well. But Kawhi has been Kawhi's been available all season long, and I think that it's been great for Clipper fans. I think it's been great for the NBA as a whole because Kawhi still to me is one of the more skilled players in the league. You know, his ability to score in the mid range is, you know, using his size and using his elevation. And then of course defensively too, you know, with the long wingspan, with the big hands and everything. So excuse me, not PG, with Kawhi being available this year has just taken the Clippers to a whole nother level. And I think it plays a role in why many people actually do have them as favorites to possibly win the Western Conference this year. And then at number 4, Paulo Banchero, it just seems like the game just comes really easy to him. You know, with just him, you know, having that size and just having that confidence in his game has just really been really incredible. Last season, won Rookie of the Year, wasn't even close if you ask me. I know that there were some other great players as well, you know, in that rookie class, but to me, if you ask me, there was no question it was Paulo Banchero. And I think this year, you know, he's just been able to take his game to just another level. Like the duo of him and Franz Wagner in Orlando was just really incredible. And on top of that, you know, they have a really good supporting cast. You know, you got guys like Jalen Suggs, you have Markel Fultz, who just continues to improve. You have Wendell Carter Jr. as well. So, you know, Orlando has just been really good, and I feel like Paulo's been the biggest X factor, you know, behind that.
No, I agree. It's funny that you have him there. I actually don't have Paulo at all in my top 10. So I like that you have a shout out there for him for sure. I like that we get to talk to him because he has been impactful. I guess maybe I just want to see more from him. And maybe when I say more from him, not more this season, just like a larger sample size in general, he's been much more impactful to Orlando's success this season than I thought he was last season. Like last season, individually, I thought he was great, but this season, I think he's more impactful for Orlando in general with the way he's played and how they feed off of that and how they work well with him. And like you said, that tandem of him and Franz Wagner has been very, very good for sure. So maybe that's why, like, he hasn't been bad at all, but I just didn't have him that far. I like that you're high on him, though, especially when he's young. Maybe you're just getting ahead of the curve early on him. You know what I mean? And so that's really, really solid for sure. For Paul George, yeah, I mean, come on, like he's a big reason why they've been successful up until recently. He was as healthy as he's been over his Clippers tenure, and so that's been really good for them as well. He's another smooth guy. You know, he's a guy who's made it so that the Clippers haven't had to have a traditional point guard, even though they've had one, right? He's played well with James Harden once they kind of got past that first kind of 6-game stint with him, you know, and again, he's just been a really solid player. He just has a really smooth style that I enjoy. Good shooter, good scorer, still just as durable as ever, still able to take it on himself and take the lead from an offensive perspective, but someone who still can play that second fiddle role in a really real, tangible way. That doesn't feel like your turn, my turn. Just like, okay, I can ramp it up now because you need me, or okay, I can kind of play back here and, you know, defer a little bit more to Kawhi and James. So my 6, 5, and 4 actually are a little different. 6, I have Paul George. 5, I have LeBron James.
Ooh,
4,
okay.
I have Kevin Durant.
That's interesting.
And the Kevin Durant one was tough. Kevin Durant, I just feel like he's been good. He's been solid, just not as dominant as he's been in years past. And yeah, on the one hand, you say I get it, he's 35. Well, that's why I have LeBron James 5. Because he's not as dominant as he was in years past. And yeah, he's 39. Like, they're still very good players. No knock on that. There's just been a little bit of age-related decline. Like KD, you know, in fact, I think it was saying he's missed, I think he's shooting like 32% on his three-pointers off the dribble, but definitely going to catch and shoot. But I remember the days where he was a bucket off the dribble like that too, from deep, you know, and now there's a little bit of an offseason for him there, right? I think you see a little bit of games where, you know, if when he's on the floor and Devin Booker's off the floor, the Suns' offense it's less than stellar. But when Devin Booker's on the floor, even without Kevin Durant, the Suns' offense is above. So, like, he's still a very, very good player. Don't get it twisted, but there has been a little bit of slippage in his game. And because he plays so well, you know, and because his decline is so slow, because he is such an effortless scorer, you know, able to get to where he wants to go, you don't see it as much. But when you line him up against the other best small forwards, you do get to see a little bit of that, you know? And so that's why I have him number 4. LeBron, what is there to say about LeBron? Like, LeBron is a great one, right? Like, he is. If anything, it's not a knock on LeBron, it's just how good these other guys have been. And the fact that LeBron, you know, especially the gotten older, and it's just what he's had to do, he's had to kind of dial it back a little bit. He's had to not have as dominant games, in my mind, as these other guys have. And when I say dial it back, I just mean like whether it's nursing that ankle injury he's had, or whether it's taking rest defensively, right? Or even sometimes where the Lakers really need D'Lo, you know, to kind of step up, or Austin Reeves for the offensive show, where beforehand, like, whatever they gave you was gravy, and now it's like, nah, they kind of really need that. Like, there's been a little bit of a decline in LeBron's game, which is to be expected. He's in year 21. So no disrespect there whatsoever. But when you account for the best of the best and small forwards, I don't think having LeBron James 5 is the worst. Although it does acknowledge he's no longer the tip of the top of the best.
I agree 100%. I'm a little bit differently, and I mean, we're definitely going to get into our top three a little later on. But you made some great points. Especially with Kevin Durant. KD still has his moments where he is a bucket, but then he definitely has shown a slight decline. Especially with age, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, he's in year 17. So Kevin Durant, even though he still is a really valuable scorer, he's definitely not the same scorer that he may have been at OKC or even at Golden State. And that's fine. And then of course LeBron as well. I mean, the fact that LeBron's even on this list at year 21 is just incredible. You know what I'm saying? So like that's what we have to take into. Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's what we have to take into consideration. But it's like you mentioned. LeBron hasn't been as strong as the other guys. He's definitely a guy that's been pacing himself. Throughout the season. He's had shining moments. Hell, me and you were on right after he had that big fourth quarter against the Clippers about a couple weeks back. So he's definitely had his moments, but obviously it's not the same LeBron for what we've seen in years past. But he's still having a pretty solid year.
Yeah, agreed. Again, not a knock on him, just acknowledgement of where he is now in his, latter years in the NBA compared to some of the best. And I still think that speaks to the longevity and the greatness of him, while also acknowledging that, yeah, he's just not that guy, and that is okay. So totally with you there for sure. But yeah, let's not waste any more time. Let's go into your number 3 player.
I actually have LeBron at number 3.
Okay.
And I know that there's some people that probably put him a little bit lower, and I definitely understand it, but I still think, with just how important LeBron has been for that Laker team, it's just been really incredible. You talk about the supporting cast of guys like D'Lo, guys like Austin Reeves, or guys like maybe Rui Hachimura and other guys, but LeBron has been like the key player for that team. And look, I know that Anthony Davis had a really good year too, but that team is nowhere near where they could be as far as. And I know that they're only going to play in, but LeBron is by far, one of the driving forces of that team. That as long as he's going to be on the court, I don't think that's going to end anytime soon.
No, I agree. I think you're right. Like he's still somebody that is a driving force, even with the decline. Which, like I said, it's not like it's not there. It has been there, but even with that, like he's still somebody that can pick it up. And yeah, again, it's such a hard place to rank him because the decline has come, right? But it's still so small, you can barely tell. And that speaks again to his longevity, to his greatness, to the fact that he's able to still outthink the game, to the fact that he can still go to bully ball, the fact he's developed his jumper to a degree that that's a major weapon for him, and he can get that when he wants to. The fact that in a straight line, his speed is still just as fast, if not faster, than many players in the NBA. Like there's a lot of factors that go into why LeBron is still the player that he is. So I definitely want to give him his flowers and say that for sure. But yeah, that's not bad. My number 3 player, or my number 3 ranked small forward, is Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum's been solid. Again, I think sometimes he disappears a little bit more than I like. On Twitter, they definitely have the Jason Tatum show tour, right? Corresponding the hypothetical dates of concerts with his, lackluster shooting numbers, his 3 of 17 or his 8 of 21 or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like Jason Tatum's become a much better player. His jump shot's still solid. I think he's done a better job of getting to the rim. Still not super great there as much as you'd like, but definitely someone there. A guy who's grown as a facilitator, a guy who's grown as a defender. Definitely been the best player on the Boston Celtics regardless, like as well as Jaylen Brown's been. There's a reason I have him number 8 and Jason Tatum number 3. Like Tatum has been better, and his highest peaks are higher than most anybody, right? So I had to get Jason Tatum there. He's just a really, really good player.
I like it. Valid points. Tatum continues to be that driving force for Boston. He's by far the best player on the team, and without his impact offensively, that team, is definitely not a legitimate title contender. And on top of that, he's continued to take leaps defensively. I still feel like he can still take another leap, but just his growth overall, it's just been incredible to watch.
Absolutely. Like you said, you can't miss kind of the way he's been able to step up and the further offensive responsibility and defense responsibility he's taken on the wing. So definitely with you on that. Who is your number 2, Nick?
Number 2, I have Kevin Durant. And the one thing that I'll say about Kevin Durant is that, even though he has had his moments where he's shined and he's the best player, then he's had his moments where, he hasn't been at his best. But the one thing that I could say is that Kevin Durant has consistently been available for Phoenix, especially in this roller coaster year, especially when you've been dealing with injuries with your other co-stars, with Bradley Beal, who's missed multiple times with injuries, Devin Booker, who had missed multiple times with injuries as well throughout the season. The one thing that's been consistent with Phoenix throughout the season has been Kevin Durant, just being available for the most part of the season. Still averaging good numbers per se, still having great moments, but definitely not as strong as what he may have used, what we may have been used to. And I think that's kind of him in a way, looking to defer to guys like a Devin Booker, especially with how talented Devin Booker is on the offensive end, especially with him being younger. So you could say that kind of plays a role, but I still feel like I still personally feel like KD is one of the best scorers in the league. I mean, it may not show, like he may not be one of the top scorers in the league, but I still feel like, when it comes down to putting the ball in somebody's hands, I still want to put the ball in his hands at the end of the day.
No, that's fair. And I think you're right. Like when it comes to getting a bucket, just one-on-one, getting there quickly, effectively, and having high percent, exactly, and having a high percentage of making that shot. I doubt there's other people that you go to, or many other people that you go to over Kevin Durant. So, and I already shared my thoughts on him on that. So I kind of agree with you there. Obviously I don't have him too, but I respect where you have him. And again, your sentiment about one-on-one, like there's no one there. Another guy, well, one-on-one, there's very few people there. I do have another person I will put there. That guy is my number 2. I'd even put my number 1 over him, but my number 2 is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard again,
Solid.
like between him and Paul George, like they're the catalyst for the success of the Clippers, no question. But Kawhi Leonard is a straw that stirs the drink, absolutely. Like you see him when he's at his best, you see him when he's healthy. He can still dial it in defensively. He's taking a major step back. Some of that due to age, some of that due to not religion. Jeez, I'm tired. I was gonna say age-related decline, and my phone, my head auto-corrected to age-religion decline. Age-related decline, injury-related decline. There you go. And some of it just the fact he has had to assume a much larger offensive role over the last couple of years. But either way, when it comes down to one-on-one, the guy is automatic in the mid-range, right? The guy can see from deep. That is for sure. The guy can use his strength to get where he needs to go. And if you're a bigger, slower guy, he can use his handle to get there too. And that's much improved. And defensively, even though he isn't the defender that he was, you do not want to test him. Like, the reputation precedes him. And you see that sometimes in the way that teams are like, yeah, we're not going to take that matchup. And that's what he does. So at the end of the day, I have Kawhi there. And when he's healthy, and he's been healthy for a majority of the season, the impact that he's had on this team cannot be overstated.
Kawhi is amazing. And I've been saying, man, he might be one of the more underrated skilled players in the league. I mean, you talk about what he's able to do in the mid range. I think one thing that I enjoy the most is just how he's able to just operate on face ups and just being able to take advantage of the single coverage and then just elevate for jumpers. I mean, it's just really incredible to watch him. There's been a lot of plays too where he drives baseline and then makes that follow shot. It's just really incredible. So it's like I said, and it's like you said, I mean, Kawhi being available has been huge. Like not even just for the NBA, but just for the Clippers as a whole. It's a reason why, they're one of the top teams in the Western Conference, and they have a really good chance of possibly making it out of the West. But everything always relies on health. If this Clipper team can be healthy going into the playoffs, because I want to say I just heard Russell Westbrook's coming back, so that's definitely big news. So if this team can go into the playoffs fully healthy and just be able to stay healthy throughout the entire postseason, this team is going to be really dangerous to play against in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And again, one of those guys in Kawhi, if he's healthy and ready to go in a 7-game series, listen, I may pick against him, but it's going to take a lot for me to do that. It's going to take a lot for me to get there for sure. All right, let's get to your number 1. Are we there already? We are there already.
We are there. Number 1, I have Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics. I mean, we've already talked about him before. I just feel like Tatum is at such a young age, has just been able to do like just a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously he's been in so many conference finals. He's gotten to 1 NBA finals, and I just feel like he just continues to take his game to another level. And it's like we mentioned earlier, I mean, Boston is not nowhere near in the position that they are in without his impact. Whether it's being a scorer, whether it's trying to take on the playmaking role, like with him just being able to like elevate his game has just been incredible in my opinion. So, Boston right now, one of the best teams in the NBA, have a legitimate chance of winning the championship this season. And I feel like even though Tatum, even though because I get it, I know that there's a lot of people they're very critical of Tatum because there has been a lot of moments where he didn't show up and he didn't step up when he needed to.
Yep.
But I'm gonna have high hopes that could possibly change this postseason because I think it's gonna be really important. Like I think the ceiling is now for Boston to win a championship. I get it, I know that he's still young. I know that Jaylen Brown is still young. They're still in their mid-20s, so I get that. But I feel like now, would be the best time. I mean, they already have the experience. They've been to multiple conference finals. They got to one NBA final. So they already understand what it takes to win. Now it's just all about getting that Larry O'Brien trophy.
Larry OB. I'm with you on that for sure. And then my number one, and I guess you didn't have him ranked in this position. That's perfectly fair. Luka Doncic.
Oh my God. See, positionless, because I would have him as a point guard or shooting guard. It's crazy.
Yeah, and what's crazy, I didn't put him in there just because he never guards those guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I was thinking about it, but I'm like, I want you to at least pretend like you guard the position. And like Luka doesn't even pretend to do that, right? Like he's, if anything, he's guarding the fours, but I didn't want to put him as a 4, so I split the difference, put him as a 3. But yeah, like he's a guy who, really, I mean, what is there to say about Luka Doncic except one of the best offensive talents, one of the best shot makers out there, a guy who can get his team involved, offensive maestro. We've seen him do more with less, probably better than anyone on this team outside of maybe LeBron James. With just the lack of fitting rosters around him and him being able to make that work in a situation where you can have a decent level offense with him at the helm. Like there's something to be said for that. And I definitely think that there's some credit given to Luka for that. I think he's improved even better offensively in terms of his shot selection, in terms of 3-point shooting, and just what that looks like. Defensively, you can always ask for more from there for sure. But I just think he's grown as a player and become even more deadly, triple-double machine, and that is something you have to take into account. And I mean, you see that. You see the impact of a guy like Luka in everything the Mavericks do. And at the end of the day, yeah, like when it comes small forward, I mean, I've seen him go head to head against Kawhi, right? I've seen him go with LeBron. Like he's had these matchups and he's shown in these big matchups. So I had to give him his flowers. I had to put him number 1. I feel pretty solid about that.
Now I feel crazy that I don't even have him on this list. So because obviously, if he is listed as small 4, he's definitely on this list, and he's definitely, if you ask me, top 2. I think, because that's been a debate for a while now. I've seen people have multiple debates about who's better between Tatum or Luka Doncic. I know some people, they may pick Tatum, some people may pick Luka Doncic. It's all based off of preference, but Luka is just, what more can I say? Like Luka is just super amazing. And the one thing that stands out is that he's always showing up against a lot of the top contenders. I mean, we mentioned him against Kawhi. There's just something about playing the Clippers that just, makes him go. It just makes him take his game to another level. Him going up against guys like LeBron, him going up against guys like Jason Tatum or even Kevin Durant. I mean, he had a 50-point game against Phoenix on Christmas. So Luka has always shown up against a lot of the top contenders. I know that Dallas has been, up and down per se. They may not be viewed as like a legitimate title contender, but the one thing you can always rely on is Luka just being able to step up whenever they need him.
Yeah, that, like you said, straight up, that's something that you can always know for a fact that he will come through, and that means a lot. That means a lot for sure. All right, man. Well, this has been great. I'm glad that we were able to kind of get this done. Thank you for rocking with me for an hour, well into midnight your time, bringing in the new day, talking basketball. I really do appreciate that. Let the good folks know where they can find you and your work, my friend.
Yes, sir. First and foremost, man, thank you for once again having me on, man. It's always a pleasure doing a show with you, man. And I already know we're going to do this again, man. We're going to bring the MNC guys on really soon, man. So we're going to get this mock draft going. So please please be in tune for that. But make sure to follow myself on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Nick Andre ATR. And just, check me out on MNC Hoops. Check me out on For Love of the Game. And then I have another pod titled Believe in Florida State Basketball. So please make sure to check all of that out. And then I have articles as well. I mean, basically just follow me on my Twitter page and then you'll just see all the content. It's kind of hard to name everything, but, just follow me on Twitter and then you'll see all the content.
Dude, listen, y'all, the guy don't stop. The guy's always talking basketball in some way, shape, or form. Any capacity you name it, he's probably done it. If he hasn't, he's probably doing it. Like, there really isn't a whole lot to say about it. Just follow him in his work. You blink and you miss it. I'm his friend. I blink and I do miss it regularly. So, like, definitely make sure to stay tuned on that because it's no joke. Like, the dude's a star up here, and you definitely want to make sure that you are staying on all the hoop stuff with him. So, as always, man, I appreciate your time. I can't wait to get back on here with y'all, with you and with the crew in a few days now and get another show popping here for absolute certain. But listen, y'all, that has been it for another episode of the Roundball Ramble podcast. Just want to thank everyone again for taking the time to listen. Always a lot of fun coming on here with my guy and just kind of making this happen and having fun while we do it. So for Nick, for myself, we are Frosty. Y'all stay frosty. And as always, we'll talk to y'all real soon. All right, y'all.